I think that we've all been there before, where you're sitting in geometry class, and there's that one annoying kid, kind of in the middle of the whole classroom, sometimes in the back, who raises his or her hand and is like, well, sir, why are we going to learn more about circles and triangles? We will never use this in our real lives. Well, I beg to differ, because if you understand the geometry of love, then you can escape the dreaded love triangle. And lucky for us, Toby Fox understands the geometry of love, because going into Deltarune's chapters 3 and 4, oh boy, we can expect some really crazy shapes to take form. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. Now, let me quickly explain what I mean by the geometry of love. And yes, I do have to say it that way. The geometry of love is all about understanding the various relationships and connections that characters have within a fictional story, and how this intricate web of connections can lead to all kinds of juicy drama and rewarding romance. Most creators only ever go so far as the love triangle, because it's tried, it's true, it's tested, and it delivers, even if it's usually very predictable and very unsatisfying. You can think of a whole number of really awful love triangle stories. Comment down below with your most hated love triangle story. I will do the same, so that way we can all just revel in our hatred of them. Every now and then you get an author that's like, you know what? What if I tried to break this up a little bit and instead make a love square? Oh, like what you get in the Twilight series at the very, very end. So it's a bit of a cop-out. Also, it's super creepy. But honestly, the idea of a love square isn't actually all that bad. And there are plenty of other stories out there that have tried to get way more intricate and interesting with the various connections that characters have. Now, let's begin applying this to Deltarune, because for the past few years now, the love geometry that most people have been looking at has been the presumed love triangle between Susie, Chris, and Noelle. And yes, I know, we can also throw in Ralze and Birdley, and you know what? We are going to get to that. But the story seems to be kind of setting up very clearly by the end of chapter 2 that Susie is going to have to make a bit of a choice right here. Is Susie going to go to the fair with Chris, or is Susie going to go to the fair with Noelle? Yes, Susie could go to the fair with Ralze, but as of the moment, there's no clear way of bringing the poor little fluffy good boy dark prince on over to the light world in order to enjoy said festivities. So unless they're going to a fair over in the dark world, we unfortunately have to rule the poor boy out. But in this video, what I want to address is how we're already seeing this love triangle transform into something far more complicated, and it's already begun, not with the most recent semi-lore dump. Yes, I know, Toby Fox says it's not canon what happened in the latest newsletter, but it is suggestive of something that we've already seen at the end of chapter 2. That very likely Caddy, one of Chris's classmates, has a huge crush on Noelle. And by all means, let's already add to the fact that Birdley has a huge crush on Noelle, but thanks to waking up the way that he did from the dark world, that's a little bit complicated. Oh boy, we're gonna dive into all of that. Now, allow me to quickly put on my professor's cap. I do have a master's degree. I actually have 3 degrees. Haha! And I'm now gonna use them in a way that has absolutely nothing to do with the fields I studied in. I'm going to present to you, my dear viewers, my wonderful class, all you lovely students. Thank you so much for leaving the apples that you did on my desk. I'm going to present to you the love triangle as we currently have it. Here at the top, we have Susie, arguably the main character of Deltarune. Susie, who was once the bully and the fright of all of hometown, is now making friends. And not only is she making friends, but she is awakening all kinds of feelings in her classmates. Woo! Woo! Most prominently, we have Noelle here on the screen. Yes, we will now look at the arrows depicting the relationship. Noelle clearly has a huge crush on Susie. As far as Susie goes, there's some suggestive material that maybe she likes Noelle back, or maybe it is that Susie's just so excited to be making friends with all these people for a change that she's like, oh my gosh, I want to hang out more with Noelle. In any case, there is the connection here. But now we take a look at Chris here on the screen. Chris very clearly has been keeping their eyes on Susie for a long time. Going back to a lot of the moments within Chapter 1, it's very clear that Chris knows Susie way better than most other people do, and has wanted to have a relationship with her since the beginning. Could this be platonic? Could it be romantic? Oh, we are going to be discovering way more. You can watch plenty of my videos already where I argue that this is very clearly romantically inclined. And as far as Susie is concerned, Susie thinks that Chris is her best friend. She loves them, at least platonically. She cares very much for them. She wants to be a part of Chris's life. And as she said, like, of course, if I go to the fair, you're going to be there with me. This whole Dark World thing, this is our thing. Being heroes, you and me, buddy, all the way. Shenanigans around town, I don't care if we're going over to the hospital or hanging out in the graveyard or going out to some weird creepy bunker. Chris, I'm with you to the end. So clearly there's a connection here. Now what about Chris and Noelle to complete the triangle? Well, even though Noelle was very clearly crushing on Susie, there is very strong history between Chris and Noelle. And there are certain implications within the Snowgrave route that implies that the player is acting on certain feelings that are now buried deep within both Chris and Noelle to try to force a relationship. It's definitely not healthy, but it is there all the same. And so, there is very clearly a connection between Chris and Noelle. There we have our lovely triangle. But now, let's start adding in other characters, and whoo, things are about to get crazy. Let's actually start off with Caddy, because she is very likely going to be the next love interest within the game. And maybe not just for Noelle. So, first off, Caddy to Noelle. From what we gather, both in canon and the non-canon, but probably very much canon, how Noelle has invited Caddy on over to hang out. We know from Caddy's own dialogue that she was teaching Noelle how to use various spells. She sees the light within Noelle and she can see the dark within Susie. Does she really though, or is it just her jealousy? In any case, Caddy does not want Noelle to be hanging out with Susie, no way, no how, and is hoping to enlist Chris to her cause. Why is this? Because I'm pretty certain that she has a massive crush on Noelle. The goth liking the jock? Oh my! And does this give an extra layer to why she's been hanging out with Jockington? Not just because he's a sweet snake boy and that she's totally going to boop his snoot, but because she might be trying to get an in with Noelle? Oh, I can definitely see that being the case. But we know from in-game and also from the newsletter that Noelle is completely oblivious to any feelings from Caddy because she is just ogling Susie and drooling over those purple abs. I mean, who wouldn't? Excuse me? But as for right now, this seems like very much a one-way street in terms of affection or of interest. Now, it's very clear that Caddy does not like Susie for a variety of reasons, but as we saw in Chapter 2, when Birdley, who really did not like Susie at all and liked to look down on her and abuse her from afar, once he began to get to know her and realize that she's actually a really cool and thoughtful person and was helping him actually be the Blue Jay that he needed to be, he began to develop all kinds of feelings, especially the moment that he realized, you're a gamer girl? Oh, be still my beating heart. And so, Birdley fell instantly in love with Susie the moment that things began to change once his paradigm shifted. What if the same could possibly happen with Caddy? Oh boy, not only then would you have another love triangle potentially playing out right here, but this could then start creating a love rhombus. Because again, think of all the connections between Chris, Susie, Noelle, Noelle, and now Caddy. Now, I highly doubt that Caddy is interested in Chris. She's very clearly enlisting their help to keep Susie away from Noelle. We're going to see how well that works out by the end of Chapter 4. I think it's really all going to crumble and come falling down. Sorry, Caddy, but I do hold out hope for you and Noelle, because I think that would be really cute. So we've got at least two potential love triangles right here, a potential love rhombus, and now we add into the mix Birdly, because Birdly very definitely has a one-sided crush on Susie. Susie is completely oblivious to any of his feelings, and quite honestly, I think Birdly's also trying to figure out what his feelings truly are for Susie as of the end of Chapter 2 when he wakes up and he's like, was all of that just a dream? But it's indeed there. And yes, I know that there's plenty of shippers like Birdly and Chris. We don't yet have much real evidence for that because Birdly very clearly sees Chris as a means of helping him to be the hero, to save Noelle, and possibly to get closer to Susie. But yeah, sure, let's just speculate and say that maybe we do get a third love triangle in all of this. Holy cow, we've got a super love rhombus and 3 love triangles. And what if really, thinking about how everyone now seems to have this affection for Susie, we completely reconfigure this and we can make this then into a 4-dimensional diamond with Susie in the middle. There you have it, the geometry of love at work. And it seems as though almost everything comes back around to Susie. Truly, Susie is the main protagonist of Deltarune, and she is acquiring a huge potential harem as of this point. Because she's got Chris, Birdly, and Noelle all interested in her, and there's a chance that maybe even Caddy will be interested in her by the end of Chapter 4. Now, what's going to happen when we start adding in characters like Jockington, Temmie, Snowy, Monster Kid? Holy cow, we don't really know where this could all go, but let's map out a potential possibility right here. What if Jockington actually has a crush on Caddy? But there's a very good chance that Caddy's got a crush on Noelle, but Noelle is clearly crushing on Susie. Susie could be crushing potentially on either Noelle or on Chris. My money's on Chris. Chris seems to be very interested in Susie, I would argue romantically so, but then there's also this connection with Noelle, and then we've got poor Birdly over here crushing on Susie. Holy cow! Sign Deltarune up for the next open block for a Mexican soap opera. There is so much angst and potential love circumstances just all around in this. This is a convoluted shape that we're building right here. And that's what makes this potentially way more interesting. We know at the heart of it all, Deltarune is about becoming friends with everyone. Romance is possibly an option within the game, but it's not integral to becoming friends with everyone. Instead, there's a whole lot of other problems and issues that need to be resolved between the classmates and between Lightners and Darkners in order for there to be a happy ending. But if Toby does decide to lean more into the romances, which he has clearly set up between chapters 1 and 2, and certain things that he's hinted at in the newsletters, even if they're supposed to be non-canonical, he's put that on out there. That information is there for us to enjoy and to read, and the interesting thing is that, especially when you look at Noelle's posts, they're very interactive and give us quite a bit of information that plays right back into the game and everything that we can observe there. Even though these newsletter stories are supposed to be non-canonical, there's definitely very strong shades to stuff that's happening within the game. It's very likely that Toby has labeled them as such because maybe something has changed down the road and he's like, look, I'm going to give you these stories because I wrote them, because they're important. These have helped me to better understand these characters, but maybe something will change between now and Chapter 7 where you can't necessarily rely on this particular story because the overall story has evolved. And I can absolutely understand that, and it really actually makes me appreciate all of the effort that Toby has put into creating all these little side stories and presenting them to us, not only as a means of keeping us engaged and interested in Deltarune, but helping us to better understand the world, the story, and the characters. In any case, what Toby has done is he's created a very intricate web of connections within a classroom of 9 kids. There's only 9 people in there, and yet you can look at this and you can already see just how convoluted and crazy this all is. And that makes it interesting, that makes it dynamic. That means that the further we go into this game, the more our choices do matter because of the consequences that they will have reverberating across this connection of people, of relationships, and could absolutely change them over the course of time, for the better or for the worse. And especially when it comes to romance, man, even more so, because there's now more at stake, with all of those feelings and potential romance all wrapped up into this, wanting to make sure that everyone gets their own happy ending. Yeah, this means that it becomes even harder, maybe in a way, to make the right choices or to find the right proper path amongst all of it, even though so far it seems like there's only really two routes, the whole pacifist and then the snow grave, but really there are a whole lot more options within this game. You just gotta go looking. So much more dialogue that you can explore that opens things up and gives you a completely different perspective on what's happening with these characters. In short, if you wish to make your story far more complicated than maybe it has any right to be, but definitely ratchets up the stakes and sets you up for way better emotional payoff, especially when it comes to romance, then think about broadening your geometry of love. Don't just make it love triangles, but think about all the different connections that are there between characters and the possible romances that could be there. Sure, some of them are probably as doomed as Birdley and Susie, but that doesn't mean that they don't bring a certain kind of energy and value to the story all their own, because all of these different relationships help to reveal various aspects of these characters and help to ratchet up the stakes that we are involved in as we play through the game, or as your audience is involved in as they read through your story. So, with all that being said, thank you so much for coming to Mr. Jensen's Geometry of Love. Class is dismissed until we get to Deltarune. Oh my gosh, we're so close. This video is almost way too late out. I needed to get it out before the next chapter, because let this be kind of a mile marker for the insanity that we're about to get into, because I guarantee things are going to get shaken up in really big ways going forward. So buckle on in. Let's get ready for Deltarune chapters 3 and 4. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.